Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the RWB International Clash of the Warriors series. It's the penultimate round of the championship here tonight at Silverstone in the UK in the McLaren 720S GT3. I'm Rob Lomas and I'm going to be on lead comms for tonight. And hopefully we'll be joined at some point by Drake when he gets online and gets home. The currently 4 minutes and 47 seconds left here in free practice. Qualifying has already occurred for this, and it's another good field of cars here at Silverstone. We currently see Josh Butler heading into Stowe Corner at the moment. Of course, Silverstone being the home of the British Formula One Grand Prix exclusively for many, many years now. In fact, since the late 1980s. And it has had a couple of redesigns since then. You see a car just spinning off in the background there at Beckett's. Currently looking at Kai Banks at the moment in his car, and we're actually on the grid now. So in just under 4 minutes time, we are going to be racing here at Silverstone. We'll do a quick rundown of the grid for you. It's Radek Schuller on pole position ahead of Justin, or James is it? I can't remember. Sorry if I've got your name wrong there, madly. Emo Play and Phil Varley are on the second row of the grid. Then it's Alexander and Dor on row 3. Kai Banks is on row 4 alongside Dan Barnett. Then it's Dirk Gretschel and Martin Chafer rounding out the top 10. Rick Binnersley is in 11th place on the grid ahead of RWB Tyrion with Hugo Gomez and Partes on row 7. RWB Audi and Sky are on the 8th row of the grid ahead of Damien Vilk and Burek. Then rounding out the top 20 is Mad Al in 19th place and Florentin in 20th. RWB Flack is in 21st ahead of Xavier Eugeni, and then Harry Hottie rounds out the top 23. I'm going to have a quick look to see if I can get Hitwall working so I can hopefully bring you the rest of the field here. It's a 1 hour 45 minute race here tonight. No limitations on how many pit stops one can and cannot make, unlike in the Constructors' Championship, for example. More news on that coming soon, actually. We've got a new series of that coming up later this month, if I remember correctly. We've also got the final round of this to come as well next weekend in the McLaren 570S GT4. So just waiting for the field now. And we do have pit wall of sorts. In fact, it's Justin Madsley. I do in second place. I do apologise on the grid. Who have pit wall working tonight. It's from the practice session earlier. There's only 8 drivers on there, so we'll probably not be using that for this evening. But still, it's 18 corners here at Silverstone with some of the most iconic corner names in motorsport coming down the pit straight into Copse Corner, a very, very fast right-hander. Then down the short straight leading up towards Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, the Hanger Straights into Stowe, Club Corner, the fantastically quick Abbey Chicane into the new arena section they built for the Grand Prix back in 2010 to meet the requirements of the motorcycle Grand Prix, the MotoGP series. As it was deemed that having the cars going through bridge was maybe not the safest idea. And then that leads on to the Wellington Straight, part of what was the national circuit, but now used for the Grand Prix as well. GC World Challenge Europe back in the day, the FIA World Endurance Championship and European Le Mans Series have all raced here as well. Then you're into the last couple of corners, Luffield, and then into Woodcote to round out a lap here at Silverstone. So drivers are just coming up to the grid now. Of course, it's worth noting this is actually the old national pits and not the newer Formula One pits. And heading up towards the start finish line, the race is going to go green any second. Hopefully now, and it is a good clean start from everyone so far. Mo Plate managing to move past Madsley there into second place, and I think a few other cars may have got past as well. The blue and orange liveried McLaren, looking at Jack Alexander at the moment, who's currently showing us down in fifth place in car number one. And we've got the 55 there as well. I think that might be Phil Varley. RWB Tyrion is currently having a bit of a scrap in his McLaren. Unfortunately, couldn't quite make out who that was ahead of him. It appears to have been a good, clean start so far, though. We're still looking at RWB Tyrion, who has made up a few positions here at the start of the race. Currently in the Inception Racing livery car. Now we're looking at Kai Banks, who is battling away with the number 14 car. That's Hugo Gomez. So been an interesting start of the race so far as they file through Abbey for the first time past the Formula One pits. Banks in the livery of 2C's Motorsport, who used to run this car. Now hard on the brakes for the arena section. Oh, a little bit of contact there in the background, unfortunately. That's brought out the yellow flag for a brief moment or two. Which is something which can happen at the arena complex. We're still looking at Kai Banks at the moment in 8th place. Graphics show he's actually, trying to catch Dan Barnett. Hugo Gomez being down in 10th place. You can see the two cars just behind Banks, one of which was Gomez. The car in front of Gomez was actually Martin Schaefer in car number 17. As they crossed the line to complete the opening lap, there's been a little bit more of a coming together in the background, unfortunately. We're looking at Miko Sky at the moment, who is battling away there. We've got behind Sky, it's Matt Hodgson, Duckworth, Peter Vargan, Nate Newcomer, Burek, Debug, Flack, Josh Butler, Dirk Gretchel, Harry Hottie, Partez, and there's another driver there as well on Fault, who is in down to 32nd now. Cecilo, I think. Excuse me. And Martin Schaefer as Hugo Gomez has a look up the inside into Stowe Corner, and Gomez manages to get the job done there. Currently down to 10th place for Martin Schaefer. Hits the brakes hard coming to Club Corner. Thinks about maybe having a little look up the inside there, but not quite close enough, unfortunately. Schaefer currently down in 10th place at the moment. So coming through Abbey once again now. It's a fantastically challenging bit of track in a GT3 car. Currently looking at Rick Binnersley battling with Florentin and Mad Al at the moment for 16th, 17th and 18th. And now we're back looking at this battle between Hugo Gomez and Martin Schaefer for 9th position at the moment. Down the Wellington Straight they come. And heading now looking at Phil Varley in the 55 McLaren. Say McLaren, they're all McLarens in this race. coming through Woodcut now and up towards Copse Corner for the third time this evening. Currently 2 laps completed so far. Quick lap around Silverstone is going to be around the higher ends of the 1 minute 50s, lower end of the 2 minute range, depending on the driver. So interesting to see how many laps they can complete. There's a little bit of contact there between Rick Binnersley and the other drivers. Unfortunately, couldn't quite catch here. That was now looking at Nate Newcomer in the number 97 McLaren. Battling away, he's got Burek right behind him, Peter Varga right ahead of him. Susilo has actually come into the pits now from 30th place. Partes rounding out the field in 31st at the moment. Now back with Mad Al, who is going to... is very close between Mad Al and Rick Binnersley at the moment. This is good news for Xavier Eugeni, as this is going to let the Spanish driver pull away from this battle. And the longer these two hold each other up, the more Eugeni can pull away here. And currently going through the arena section now, where everyone does tend to concertina up somewhat to a degree. And coming down the Wellington Straight now, Al's still in 16th, but I think, is Rick going to have a look up the inside? Not quite. In fact, Al was battling with Xavier Eugeni there for 15th place as well, keeping it very tight at the exit of Luffield. And heading through Woodcut now to start the next lap. Rick is right on the back of Mad Al's car at the moment, getting a good view of the rear wing and the rear diffuser pair of them are, as the battle rages on between Florentin and Sky in the background, and Florentin having to really step on the anchors there to avoid ploughing into the back of Rick Binnersley. Coming out of Chapel onto the Hangar Straight now, currently up into 5th gear, keeping it on the rev limiter in 5th, down to 3rd for Stowe. Back up into 4th gear now, holding 4th and then hard on the brakes down to 1st gear for Club Corner. Used to be a much faster corner back in the 1980s, did Club. Meanwhile, looking at Justin Madsley in the 76 at the moment, with Alexander right behind him in car number 1. Gap last time they came for a timing split was only 0.269 of a second, so we'll see here just how close they get. Meanwhile, we're now looking back at Rick Binnersley with Xavier Eugeni in front of him and Buka Florentin, right behind him. They've got they've got Mikko Sky there and Duckworth as well, right with them as Florentin goes off the track. In fact, so does Sky as well. They come back on, rejoin the track up towards Luffield Corner now, and coming around the outside is Mikko Sky. He's lost a fair few positions. He's actually behind Debug now. Debug is in car number 8. And right behind Florentin is Peter Varga. And we've very kindly been sent some driver profiles for some of the drivers in this race, and Peter Varga is in fact one of them. Currently looking at Debug at the moment. Debug in 23rd. You can see Varga there in the background. Dirk Gretschel getting involved as well. Now heading down towards Stowe Corner. So currently up towards Club Corner comes this battle here. See car number, there's a back marker there as well. Now looking at Hugo Gomez, another driver who we have a profile for. He's says his car of choice in ACC is actually the BMW M4 at the moment, and that his main rival is Martin Schaefer. Well, the good news for Hugo is that he's currently showing as being ahead of Schaefer at the moment, ahead of Martin Schaefer, excuse me. Currently battling in currently P8 and P9 respectively at the moment. Still 1 hour 34 minutes to go here at Silverstone. So coming through Luffield now, heading up towards Woodcote, which used to be a chicane in the latter half of the 70s and through the 1980s after Jody Scheckter's big accident in the 1973 British Grand Prix at the end of the opening lap, where he took out a large number of cars. In fact, it was a multiple car pile-up and took out the entire Surtees team, all 3 of their cars. And so for the next British Grand Prix at Silverstone in 1975, there was a chicane put in at Woodcote to try and slow the cars down. Florentin there having a look with Duckworth, and Florentin having to get on the grass. There's contact there as well, contact with Debug. And as Florentin tried to correct it, he came back across the track and hit Debug, so that's going to probably be looked at by the stewards. And now looking at RWB Flack in 26th place at the moment. Currently shown as being just ahead of Peter Varga. Well, I think Varga, I don't know if Varga's got back past. No, I can see Varga's car in front, excuse me. So here's a little bit of a gap there between Varga and RWB Flack, but they've all gained positions as a result of the incident involving Florentin and Debug. In fact, you can just about see Debug there ahead of Varga. And Varga, he said that his car of choice mainly is the Ferrari, although the McLaren, BMW and the Honda would be his secondary choices. And he asked who his main rival was in RWB races. He said the entire GT Hub crew. Well, thankfully for him, one of them is currently in the safety of the commentary box this evening, and that he has been racing for about 10 years, and 2 of them competitively. Meanwhile, back with Xavier Eugeni, who's had a little bit of a moment there, unfortunately, at Stowe. There's another car going slowly, getting involved as well. I'm not 100% sure who that was. Unfortunately, there's Dirk Gretschel in the 110. Got, I think, maybe Florentin ahead of him, judging by the number on the side of the car, and he's got Miko Sky right behind him as well. Having to try and do this by number. here. And currently heading up the Wellington Straight now. Gretschel with a good exit out of the arena section. He's going to have a look, maybe, I think, on the brakes. Not quite close enough, unfortunately. And heading in towards Luffield and Woodcote now. Can't leave the door too open for Woodcote. Luffield, excuse me, less another driver. Tries to have a little sneaky look up the inside, but Dirk has managed to keep the position there. Jones being half a second behind Matt Hodgson. So Hodgson is in the yellow McLaren, excuse me, and in front of them is most likely going to be Eugenie. So that's that. Matt Hodgson, car number 92. Says his favourite car in ACC is the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. As Gretschel has a look around the outside into Stowe and pulls it off. Very good move indeed there from Dirk Gretschel. Going up into 21st place. Having to go the long way round. Matt made him work very hard indeed for it. We're currently looking at Matt Hodgson now. Best lap being a 2:01.9. So coming into the arena section now, hard on the brakes, down to second, maybe even first gear, depending on what car you're in and how much torque you have. As Gretschel right on the back of Xavier Eugenie already. Don't think he's going to be able to get the job done, unfortunately, here on the run into the last couple of corners. See part of the old Grand Prix circuit there as well. Heading into Luffield now. A bit of a messy exit there from Dirk Gretschel. You got a couple of wheels into the grass. That's going to be enough for Matt Hodgson to maybe have a look. Trying to get back past into the cops. Matt deciding not to. Such a phenomenally quick corner is cops. You can see Miko Sky going a little bit wide in the background there, giving doing a debug a bit of a favour maybe as well. In fact, we'll have a look in a sec to see if debug has in fact got past. Not quite close enough, unfortunately. You can see Varga in the background there as well. Little group of cars all battling for 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th and 25th. As Miko Sky goes very wide indeed there, letting both Debug and Varga through. Now, whether he was helped in that or whether it was on his own volition, we're not 100% sure, but no doubt the stewards will maybe be having a little look at it. Now looking at RWB Audi in the 543 McLaren, currently in 12th place. Just behind 13th, excuse me, just behind Damien Vilk. And Matt Hodgson here, as he's got Debug and Varga right with him, and he's currently on the gearbox of Xavier Eugenie's car. Gretschel having got past Eugenie a little bit earlier on in the lap. Coming down the Wellington Straight now, under the bridge is Hodgson going to have a look. He's going to have to go the long way round the outside, but he's going to have the inside line for Luffield. Hasn't quite pulled it off, unfortunately, as Dirk Gretschel already off in the distance. Coming down the start-finish straight once again comes this group of cars. Eugenie going very wide there at the exit of Copse Corner. No doubt track limits are going to be a bit of an issue here, which they traditionally are at Silverstone, especially in the Porsche Super Cup here when that's visits as part of the Formula One support bill. There's usually stewards are kept very, very busy indeed with track limits, and likewise in the British Touring Car Championship, as well as Debug having a very good look at the back of Matt Hodgson's car. Is Debug going to be able to get it done on the inside into Club? Not quite, and this is bringing Peter Varga into this as well. In other news, it's got even busier here in the commentary box, as I'm delighted to say that Draka has decided to join us right as we see Oliver Smith having a bit of a coming together with RWB Audi at the arena section as well. So you've picked a good time there, mate.
I feel like I've brought some bad luck with me.
Oh no, don't worry. There's already been a little bit of well, some of the cars currently look not quite how they left the factory in Woking in the south of England. I think it's fair to say at the moment, but been a good race so far here at Silverstone. Yeah, it's currently still pretty close indeed between everyone at the moment.
It's just like last week. I don't know how much you have seen of that, but it was crazy. Like the whole field still was within a few seconds of each other all the time. It's yeah. For some reason, they love being close to each other.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I don't think I actually managed to catch any of last week's race because I had actual real-life work commitments that weekend covering the Rolex 24 at Daytona. So unfortunately, I didn't actually catch any of it. But no, the racing in the Clash of the Warriors series is very, very close indeed. And case in point, there's not an awful lot between Oliver Smith and Mad Al at the moment, for good measure. And also been reading through some of the driver profiles so far as well, which has been very interesting indeed, as we see Peter Varga managing to get past Xavier Eugeni on the inside at Club Corner. This is the second part of Club. Was back in the day that used to just be 190-degree right-hander. Now it's been changed a little bit since then, and even reprofiled when they had to build the Formula One pits a good few years ago as well.
I've also been reading through some profiles there, but they're very interesting.
Yeah, they are indeed. In fact, I've mentioned a couple of them so far on air this evening, and it has actually been very interesting indeed. Also means we can actually maybe get a little bit of a sneak look into peek into what kind of setups some people are running, whether it's full-on rig to well, case in point, in my case, a Logitech G29 clamped onto a desk from IKEA.
That sounds familiar to me. Although my desk isn't fully IKEA anymore, there's a custom top layer on it, so it's now about 2.5 meters wide or something.
Nice. That's something I could probably do with myself.
It was made especially for my PC, so I can have more room, because my PC is also on my desk with my monitor next to it and a lot of other, let's call it shit.
Yeah, the less said about my desk at the moment. I've got my computer up there for now. Well, I need to maybe move the computer and the PS4 back around at some point. But yes, there is a lot of stuff on my desk at the moment, including my laptop at the moment.
For me as well, I tried to get Pitfall up, but it's still on the practice server.
Yes, I found that out earlier as well. As currently looking at Zvonimir Burek from DSRT, who, well, we were looking at him, now we're looking at RWB Flak, in 25th place, as he has a look at Xavier Eugenie. It would be for 24th. Is Flak going to be able to get the job done? Not quite. Taking a wider line through the last couple of corners there into Luffield now. And heading out of Luffield, down through Woodcote and back onto the, I guess you could call it the old pit straight, in a way, because for many years, especially growing up, that was the Formula One pits as well. So the thought of Copse Corner being turn one was an interesting one, to say the least. Coming in down the pits into a what at the start of the race would have actually been a completely, well, pretty much flat out, depending on how well you warm your tyres up. As Mikko Sky has come into the pits from 29th place. And still, this battle raging on here. The McLaren showing that it does race pretty well when in a bit of a train of cars. The McLaren being known for having very good brakes and a lot of aero. And
it's kind of the Red Bull of the GT3 cars.
Yeah, it is
some bloody good aero.
Yeah, lots of aero, lots of very good brakes, and also a ridiculously heavily detuned engine as well. Of course, the modern GT3 cars do have some racing modifications made to the engines, like, for example, racing fuel cell, dry brake quick releases everywhere in case you need to change an engine. You got dry sump system as well for the oil lubrication, and got lighter exhaust, this new air filter, this, that, and the other. And actually, in a lot of these cases, these cars are all, you do that on the standard engine, you'd probably be looking at well over 700 brake horsepower. In fact, the McLaren from the factory makes 700 and something teen brake horsepower. Xavier Eugenie is battling with another driver, and now we're cutting away to Martin Chafer. Currently got Phil Varley right on his rear view camera screen. See Dan Bonnet and Jack Alexander just ahead of them there. They come through Abbey, and Oliver Brett Smith in 17th place in, I think that's car number 82, has been given a drive-through penalty. Which, if I remember correctly, is for track limits?
Might have been.
Yeah, I'm guessing then that he's been taking a slightly unique line through one or two corners, I think it's fair to say. He's right on the gearbox of Mad Al at the moment. And I think he may have actually been done, Oliver Smith, for good old track limits, as he sends it very hard up the inside of the penultimate corner. And we're just looking to see if there is any Tracy McLaren in a gravel trap. There isn't, and that means that he's just got past Mad Out for 16th place. And now we are back looking at Debug and Peter Varga and Buka Florentin all in this lovely little battle here for 21st place overall. Coming into Copse Corner once again.
Remember, Copse Corner is dangerous if you have Lewis on your inside.
I mean, it's a dangerous enough corner, full stop. It's incredibly fast, and actually when they redesigned the circuit for the first time in the early 1990s, there was a lot less, much less runoff than what there is now. There's hardly any runoff there actually for a corner that quick, and it was definitely one of those that got your attention in a big way as a driver. In fact, the same could actually probably be applied to quite a lot of the corners here at Silverstone. Stowe Corner was the same. Abbey Corner was still just a flat-out left-hand kink, and then you went down under the bridge into Bridge Corner itself, all of which being incredibly quick sections of track in anything, and in a Formula One car even more so, and even back in the early 1990s when Nigel Mansell was at the peak of his powers. So very, very good indeed to see that there has been more runoff area added over the years.
It is needed with safety of especially F1. If you look at the hit that Verstappen got, it was still 180 miles per hour impact he made. That's a nasty impact, I can tell you. That's I believe it was something like around 50 G-forces or something he had.
Yeah, it was.
Impact, and that's
we actually had it on live at the time at work, and well, I say live. It was the pictures I had access to was basically somewhat akin to trying to watch from an iPhone about 2 meters, whereas there's a bit of a hip check there between Dan Barnett and Alexander, which is enough to see Phil Varley getting in the mix as well. And Varley goes through into 8th place as Barnett takes a interesting line, I think it's fair to say, through the first couple of corners. Abbey, excuse me. And in turn, this is bringing Martin Chafer and RWB Tyrion into the mix as well. We're currently looking at Martin Chafer at the moment. About to try and get past Phil Varley. Excuse me. And not quite able to get the job done. So there's a messy few corners there, I think it's fair to say, for a couple of drivers.
Yeah, I do recognize the top 10 though. You haven't seen the race from last week, but it's looking at it, I think it's about the same guys in the top 10, not the same position, of course. Shula is new to the top 10 from last week. He wasn't there last week, so
yeah. Although, if anyone who's watched the Constructors' Championship will know that the sight of Radek Schuller in first place is not a new sight, to say the least. To put it that way, shall we say. He's been phenomenally quick, and actually, I think may have actually won the Constructors' Championship as well in the drivers' standings. Yeah, so cracking, very quick driver indeed is Radek. So yeah, that seeing him up there is going to be a surprise to, well, very, very few people, quite honestly.
Might I add that Shula managed to get P1 in qualifying by only setting one fast lap. He did an in lap, or his out lap, of course, sorry, his out lap, so out of the pits, and he straight went for the fastest lap and he made it.
Yep. And to be fair, he did have quite a bit of practice doing that in the Constructors' Championship last season, as the qualifying format for last season in the Constructors' Championship, for anyone who didn't watch it, you only had one lap, and if you managed to mess up your flying lap due to track limits, or you couldn't make qualifying for whatever reason, then you were starting at the back of the grid. So it is not a surprise, therefore, to see Radek on pole position this evening, as he, most of the time, that's what he was doing at the back end of 2021 and into 2022 in Constructors Series. Well, he said that his main rival in RWB races is Emo Plate, and it's interesting to note that Emo is actually currently the driver who is right behind Radek in second place on track at the moment. So...
yeah, I also like the answer from him. What other sims do you use or play at? And his answer was, "Are there other sims?" Question mark.
I don't know. As we see, I don't know. I could not possibly comment on that. Depends what one defines as a sim, methinks. But there are plenty of sims, and everyone is very, very well catered for here at RWB. We have races on ACC like this one, for example. There's races on. There was a race on IndyCar race on Automobilista 2 last night. The night before that, on Thursday, the Audi TTRS Cup on Race Room Racing Experience. We do there's a little bit of Wreckfest as well. So, yeah, there are. I'd go as far as to say there are other sims.
Can you call Wreckfest a sim, though?
Well, I don't know.
That's the discussion. Of course, I have been there from one day at Wreckfest, and tell me it's chaos, but fun chaos.
Oh, absolutely. It is immense.
The description of the event is even, "No rules are applied."
Excellent. And speaking of excellent, that's what Debug is probably thinking to himself right now, having just gone past Zvonimir Burek in the 300 McLaren, and there's a bit of an ambitious looking lunge there from Florentin, and unfortunately has made contact with Debug there, but Florentin came off considerably worse anyway, and has dropped a few positions as well, having already been in the wars somewhat once this weekend. Has actually come into the pits now as well for good measure, so I think he might actually have a bit of damage to his car. Looking at Dan Barnett and Phil Varley still battling away.
I think that guy might have just got some front wing damage or a split circuit damage or something with that hit. Yeah. Don't think it's too much suspension damage or something. It wasn't that big of a hit, but still a nasty one.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it is one of the heaviest. In fact, I say one of the heaviest. It's one of only 2 or 3 properly heavy braking zones here at Silverstone, and yeah, that was. It looked, from what we could see on the TV camera, to be pretty kind of late and low percentage and last minute and all that, and probably a few other things beginning with L. And it was, and Florentin,
he might have just been a little bit too much of a fan of Ricciardo or something. It was late braking though.
Yes, as I think RWB Tyrion has made a very late call indeed to come into the pits. Saw a driver having a bit of a... In fact, he hasn't come into the pits at all. He has now. He is had a very, very big moment coming out of Luffield. Saw him flying across the track onto the grass, and He's now come into the pits for his pit stop. Currently looking at RWB Audi at the moment. Not in his car of choice tonight, I should say. His car of choice being the Porsche. And he was asked, do you have a rival in RWB races and who are they? And he said it's always Charger and beating him.
Yeah, those guys do like a fun battle with each other.
Oh, absolutely. And when asked what other sims do you play, he replied simply with yes.
Gentleman's answer. Yes, I see.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Currently got a slightly interesting line from one of the cars behind him there. 2 wheels on the grass on the brakes into club corner is what I would personally describe as suboptimal. Ideally, for maximum braking performance, make sure all 4 wheels are on the circuit and not just 2 of them.
You can fight that with saying the grass is part of the circuit. Though I believe that's not what you're meant to do, Nate Newcomer. That's not what you're meant to do.
Yeah, the grass is, well, it does rain quite a bit in the UK, and wet grass is not brilliant at slowing cars down. Turns out it does have a bit of a tendency from experience to have the complete opposite effect, or at least it feels like.
Yeah, I have some experience with that, yes, unfortunately.
Yes, yes, I see. I don't have any experience, fortunately, with getting onto the grass, because I've never really raced in the wet on ACC. Most of my driving was actually being in hot lap mode.
Yeah, my brain thought the first time I started up ACC, let's do without even setting the controls right. Let's do a hot lap around Sandford in the rain. I believe I didn't make it through turn 1.
Yes, brake late, brake firm on the brake pedal, and sail straight on into the gravel trap at Tarzan.
Exactly. But yeah, ooh, that's Schaefer going in the inside of Bonnet.
Yep, and
it's real deep.
Really deep there, Schaefer. Very, very good driver indeed, and able to hold on to 9th place despite Barnett maybe thinking about having a little cheeky cutback there. Currently looking at MO Plate at the moment in 2nd place. The flames coming out the exhaust as he brakes and turns through Maggots, Beckett's into Chapel now. Through the little kink onto the Hanger Straight. Under the road bridge, so trucks and that can actually get into the pits at Silverstone in the infield. And into Stowe Corner now. There's some decent grass banks on the outside of the circuit there. And into Club Corner now, where there used to be, before they redesigned the circuit, a really big old grass bank. It's actually where I watched the Grand Prix from in 2009. And hard on the, well, I say hard on the brakes, just a dab of brake these days into Abbey. You can still see, if you look on satellite images, where the track used to go. As well as we see RWB Audi now. And now we're looking at Harry Hottie in the number 13 car in 24th place. He's got RWB Tyrion right there with him. And Tyrion going to have to maybe have a go. And he does. Hottie going a bit wide there, I think, through the first part of the complex. Hard on the brakes again now into the second part, into Luffield. And that means that RWB Tyrion has now moved up into 24th place.
Might I say that Hottie has a really cool livery?
He does indeed. It is... I don't know what colour that would be described as. Maybe purple, perhaps?
I think it's purple indeed. Even with the rims that he is painted purple. He's all going purple today.
Absolutely. Maybe he was expecting there to be some rain as well, in which case you could say that the look of the raindrops would lead you to believe that there was purple rain.
Wow. That's just my answer, wow.
Oh, that's an older song reference. I think that was by Prince, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it is. I'm a young lad, but I still know it due to my parents.
Ah, yes, so do I. As we see Dirk Kretschel getting past Lee Duckworth for 15th place. Duckworth has just pulled off into the pits there as well for good measure, which is where Phil Varley and Dorr are currently at the moment. And we've got a facts file on Dorr as well. Driver profile, excuse me. And said he'll drive anything almost. And when asked what kind of hardware he was running for the race, he said intergalactic spicy stuff.
I think he's mean with it. He has some fancy array setup with probably 3 monitors next to each other and one monitor above it, with a very good steering wheel, some luxury pedals, probably an EU handbrake with a I think a gearbox next to it, something like that.
Yeah,
that sounds intergalactic to me.
I mean, to be fair, anything more than a Logitech G29 and a chair borrowed from the parents' dining room and being clamped onto a desk sounds pretty intergalactic to me. So I think it's...
Don't shame yourself. I'm running the same setup, and it's fine. Everything is better than a Trustmaster T80. Believe me, I started with that.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't even have force feedback. That literally just had as an elastic string pulling it back to his center point.
That sounds less than ideal.
It was, especially after a year or two of use. That elastic band was screwed up, to say the least, and it wasn't pulling back to the mids anymore.
Meanwhile, as RWB Audi has come into the pits, we're looking at Martin Schaefer, who is currently up into 7th place now as drivers start to think about, maybe needing to pit for fuel and maybe some nice fresh tyres. Nice fresh tyres that are preferably warm and round. Well, I'm guessing the round part being slightly more important. Not being an engineer, but ... Yeah, so that's coming... Well, he's currently in the arena section now. Debug has also come into the pits, I should add.
I've got some interesting news. I don't know if you've seen the list, but we are missing Mr. Dorr, and he just has let everyone know that his seat bracket has broken off on one side.
Yes, I have just seen on the YouTube chat. He said, feet up and popcorn time. Seat bracket broken on one side since 20 minutes in. Drove a further 25 minutes and couldn't keep consistent with my seats moving and tipping back. So, sorry to hear that, mate. So, yes, that is unfortunately what has led to Dor's retirement from the race this evening. Currently still looking at Dan Barnett right now with another driver right behind him, not for position. I should add, the next car for position is actually the car in the back of shot, which is Rick Binnersley's car. Now looking at Peter Varga as Damien Vilk and Dirk Gretschel both come into the pits. Varga in his blue and yellow McLaren for this weekend, as Hugo Gomez taking a different line, I think it's fair to say, through the first part of the arena section. Having a very big moment there and getting just crashing over the sausage curb there has given how stiff modern GT cars are. That's not going to do one's back much good, I'd imagine. Yeah, not brilliant situation to be in as a driver. We still look at Rick Binnersley, who is closing the gap, it's fair to say, to Dan Barnett, as pit stop cycle is currently going on at the moment. I'm looking at Kai Banks and Jay Alexander. Alexander in the pink car, Banks in the blue and black machine. As Rick Binnersley comes into the pits, there you can actually see Dirk Gretschel in the background there in the green fronted car, having come out of the pits. You got a couple other drivers there as well, but I don't think that's going to be for position, more due to being a lap down because of the pit stop cycle. Hard on the brakes. Oh, sorry.
Shall we go?
No, so I was going to say just coming through club corner.
It's going to be interesting with the pit stops again. For you, little Rob, last week we had, I think, Banks waiting for the last 15 minutes or something to do his pit stops. He almost had maximum fuel with him and just needed a little bit of a quick splash and dash, and then he could go. And he actually did that, and he pulled it off, and that's Alexander going down the inside of Banksy actually there. Yeah. He lost just a place. But it's going to be interesting again with pit stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also quite a, relatively speaking, shortish pit lane at Silverstone as well, especially compared to somewhere like Spa, for example, as Radek Schuller's having a bit of a moment there, it's fair to say, as Emo Place and Harry Hottie both come into the pits, respectively. There's Oliver Brett Smith in the 83, excuse me, with the red car behind him being that. I'm trying to work out whether that is Burek or someone else, but either way, we're now looking at Lee Duckworth, whose car is in the livery that ran at the Suzuka 10 Hours a couple of years ago. Lineup, which, if I remember correctly, had Mika Hakkinen in the driver lineup, the 1998 and 1999 Formula One world champion for McLaren. Absolutely fantastic driver, still got it behind the wheel as well. I'm trying to find who the other drivers were.
Might I add, Banksy not doing the long wait for the pit stop, but actually now getting some fuel and maybe some new tires already in. So it's interesting to see what they're trying to get with the pit stops.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, as I think some drivers are making more mistakes now, whether that's due to the tyres being completely shot to pieces, shall we say. Silverstone's got a lot of fast corners that do tend to kind of chew up the tyres somewhat. So whether that's having a bit of an impact, I'm not sure, but we'll wait and see. As Jack Alexander is still in third place at the moment, almost kind of in no man's land, pretty much. The McLaren in question, I found it was driven by Mika Hakkinen, Katsuaki Kubota, who's a very quick driver, and Hiraki Ishiura, who is a two-time Super Formula champion in Japan and has also raced in Super GT for many, many years, with a best championship result of third back in 2012, driving for Saad in the Lexus SC430. He's won a few races too. He's won at Fuji a couple of times in the 500 kilometers, and actually four times, at Fuji. So very, very quick driver is Ishiura-san. In fact, the year Ishiura actually won his most recent Super Formula Championship was the year he beat Pierre Gasly, the AlphaTauri Formula One driver, to the title as well. So, very good driver indeed. We're currently looking at Peter Varga at the moment, with Kai Banks right on his gearbox. The difference being that Varga hasn't pitted and Banks has pitted. I think it's fair to say Varga trying to stretch this as long as possible. And meanwhile, there's another car right behind them, and that's actually Hugo Gomez. Now, I know Gomez and Varga both from GT Hubs, so this is going to be quite an interesting battle. They are rivals with each other to a degree, and you can add Martin Schaefer into the mix as well, for that matter. So this is going to be very, very close indeed. As Madsley comes into the pits from second place.
This is what I absolutely love about these drivers here at RWB. So close, but still keeping it clean, not touching each other, giving each other room to work with, but not giving too much room. When we see Banks actually going down the inside and Varga making a mistake there, so Gomez is also past Varga. That's a hard one for Varga. He's down at 9.
He's going to have to pit at some point, because I think the tyres are just completely gone on the number 12 car. So I think we'll probably be seeing him pitting quite soon. I mean, the tyres have done the best part of an hour already, so it would, you'd think it would make sense, should we say, for him to pit. As we see Victor Cicillo pulling over at the side of the track briefly, I think maybe to let someone else pass. Now looking at Damien Vilk as he battles with Dirk Gretschel for 17th, excuse me. Coming through the Abbey chicane now. Dirk not quite close enough to have a look on the brakes there into the first part of the complex. And now we are looking back at Rick Binnersley. So, coming now looking at Oliver Smith in 22nd place as Matt Hodgson comes into the pits from 13th in the number 92. I nearly said Ferrari then, because I'm so used to seeing him racing a Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. He is, of course, in a McLaren. Yes. Would not have been awkward in the slightest if I'd said Ferrari.
You might have got some people mad at you for saying a Ferrari to a McLaren.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's just like saying Verstappen is racing for Mercedes. That's also swearing.
Depends what he's driving on iRacing. He might well be racing for Mercedes.
Yeah, that's true. Last iRacing race, he didn't do that good with the 24 hours at Spa. He crashed and he eliminated his whole team.
Yes.
So he might not be touching that for a long, long time.
Yeah, maybe.
But I thought it was Fleck next to Debug, but he can smell his exhaust gases right there. That's real close into that corner.
Oh yeah, they are incredibly close, and I think that's Emo Plate just behind them as well. Emo currently very far up the field, to the point we can't actually see him on the little scoring tower, because he's that far up. And there's a big old moment at club corner there. Took a lot of the sausage curb on the inside at the second part of club, and sausage curbs are designed to be a kind of a deterrent for trying to police track limits, but at the same time, you hit one of those things, you know about it, and any photographers there are going to be getting some pretty cool shots to your car with all four wheels probably clean in the air.
Yeah, those sausage curbs, maybe your head won't know, but your back will definitely know you drove over them.
Yeah, you might be needing to go see a chiropractor in the morning. As meanwhile, we're currently looking at Mikko Sky on board the 777 at the moment. Mikko having a battle with Zvonimir Burek and goes up the inside into just before Luffield there and gets the position. So Sky's now up to 22nd place. Debug is now up into 18th, having got past Damien Vilk, Damien being in the pits. Now we're looking at Justin Madsley at the moment, as Jack Alexander and Martin Chafer both come into the pits for their pit stops. So we said about Emo Plate earlier on, he was in P4 on track, net P2 because of the pit stops, and Radek Schuller is back into the lead of the race now. Can we see Emo Plate just getting past this little battle here between Debug and Flack? So Emo clearing them, no problem at all. As Peter Varga has also finally decided that his tyres were completely ruined and that he too should also come into the pits because his McLaren also needed a little bit of a drink somewhat.
I don't believe there's a lot of guys going for the long run with the pit stops this time. Last time we saw quite a lot of them trying, at least, or doing it. They're all around, and after an hour or even earlier already pitting, new tires, big splash of fuel, I think.
Yeah, it's because of the way Silverstone is, I think, because tyres definitely make sense, but also you might as well brim the tank while you're there. If you're going at like the pitting at an hour to go, for example, then yeah, get the car in the pits, get everything sorted out, tyres changed, etc., and yeah, get
your own drink replaced.
Yeah, get back on the track and crack on with it, which is what has happened here. See, Flack and just pulling away slightly from Debug now. See, Hodgson there in the background getting passed by one of the other drivers. Not for position, that was because of to go a lap down, excuse me. And currently looking at Oliver Brett Smith in the 83 car in 23rd place, looking towards his helmet. coming through Maggots Beckett's Chapel now. And now looking at the same camera angle briefly, but for Kai Banks, who's got Hugo Gomez right there with him. Gomez not quite close enough to have a go on the brakes into Stowe. I don't think he's going to be quite close enough. At Club, no, he's not. He is just there waiting, biding his time. So, in fact, I think the car that lapped Matt Hodgson we saw earlier was actually this car right here, the number 97, driven by Nate's newcomer. Nate's lapping consistently in the 2-minute range. So, good shift from Nate. And I don't quite know whether he's pitted or not yet. Oh, well, he's down to 4th now because Madsley's just got back past him. So it will be an interesting one to see if he does pit any time in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so.
That's going to be interesting to see. I'm not used to seeing Nate in an older car than the Jaguar.
Yeah, I was used to seeing him in a Porsche during the Constructors' Championship. And I've seen him racing a BMW before as well.
Yeah, that's just what I love, especially about this championship. Seeing all the different cars, all the drivers needing to adapt to all the different cars. I think it's fun to see. It's also fun for them to be kind of forced to learn to drive in a different car, especially if you've been sticking with the same car for ages. It's it's kind of like learning to drive again.
Oh, it very much is, and it's basically me every time I am on this game. Feels like it's a case of relearning how to drive. Certainly, the first time I played ACC, I was actually having to relearn how to drive a racing car. So,
yeah, it's very different. I went from F1 to the F1 game to this, and yeah, then you notice what a real sim feels like.
Oh, indeed, one does.
Varga really going fast right now. I think his pit stop was a little bit too late because he lost some places for that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was a very late pit stop from Varga. I mean, it was pretty clear a couple of laps earlier that the tyres were pretty much finished on his McLaren. So, yeah, it was. I think the pit stop was due to happen at some point. But if he'd have pitted a couple of laps earlier, I think he'd be a bit higher up than the 15th place he is currently. He's currently got Maddow just ahead of him by about 0.7 of a second. So he should be okay in that regard in terms of being able to make up a few more positions. He's got RWB Audi also just ahead of Mad Al, and I think Varga might be able to actually get the job done by the end of the race here, as Matt Hodgson comes into the pits again, I believe. Something not quite right for Matt's there in his McLaren.
Would he have forgotten to put more fuel in?
I don't know. I don't actually know.
If that's the case, he actually has a stop and go penalty of 30 seconds. He might be
never rains, but it no, he's only just been given it.
Then he's been speeding in the pit lane. My guess is he's accidentally speeded in the pit lane.
Oh, yeah, I think you could be absolutely spot on the money there. Stop and go is what you usually get for speeding in the pits. And
That's gonna hurt because you're already in the pits and then you need to go through again and stop for 30 seconds.
Unlike playing Monopoly, no collecting £200 once you pass go. Unfortunately, it's a case of go back through and try to not take the pit lane speed limiter off so soon and try and actually put it on a little bit earlier. You see Oliver Brett Smith here ahead of Harry Hottie. Got another driver in front of them a bit further up the field. Maybe Varley. But there's Hugo Gomez in car number 14, doing a smashing job so far this evening. Currently running very well in P6 overall at the moment. Just 1.4 seconds behind Kai Banks, and we look at Radek Schuller still in the lead of the race. Gomez does have Alexander right on his gearbox there as well. Varley might be a little bit too far back to trouble them. He's currently 13 seconds behind these two, so we'll see how that pans out. Currently looking at Mad Out at the moment with Peter Varga, as expected, right on his gearbox. Jack Alexander is making plenty of is getting a very good look at the rear diffuser of Hugo Gomez's car.
But remember, don't touch the back wing. You will get a 50,000 euro fine.
Yep. Although, in the case of in a GT3 car, it's a bit different because they don't quite produce as much downforce as on a Formula 1 car. Come through Cops now. Alexander getting a good run through Cops at the inside. Gomez is going to have the inside line though for Maggots. Alexander is showing as having got past the position. Alexander cuts back across the front of Gomez to claim well and truly 6th place. The cracking bit of driving there from the pair of them, and that means that Jack Alexander is now up into 6th place. Hugo Gomez down in 7th. Means next driver for Gomez is going to be Varley. Varley being quite a way behind at the moment, though. Indeed, actually 13.5, almost 13.6 seconds behind in arrears. In much the same way that the gaps between the leaders, it's currently 13.7 seconds between Radek Schuller and Emo Plate in the lead of the race. Then it's Madley another 8 seconds behind in 3rd. Then Newcomer another 5.8 seconds behind. And then Kai Banks, who is, well, we can see just in front here on screen. So we're just going to wait now for him to go through. Yeah, another 12.3 seconds behind Nate Newcomer is Kai Banks. So yeah, the gaps really are starting to open up a little bit here at Silverstone. See Jack Alexander there heading up towards Luffield right now.
It's interesting to see how little laps they have driven until now. Because I remember from last week they did eventually something around 64 laps or something, and they're only here into the 30s with Oliver Brett Smith actually drifting into that corner. That's an interesting one. You're taking a look at Jay Alexander and switching back to Brett Smith. He just drifted that corner, and I believe that's Damien Wilk actually in front of him now. Yes, that is. Still trying to get up that fight into that corner. They are really close. Smith getting a good look at the diffuser of that car. Going to this fast left-hander and switching back to Kai Banks. That's actually being followed by Alexander really close. With behind him Gomez and I think that's Farley in the background. No, that's not. That's only Gomez in the background. Getting past the back marker there. And I think my colleague Rob has left the commentary box for a little. Let's see, that's Gomez trying to chase Alexander around this fast track. Might add a beautiful livery from all of them, but especially Gomez, real clean, real nice with the white and the blue. And my colleague Rob has actually been going to get some water. Because of course, throat also needs some water. Gotta stay hydrated like Max Verstappen always has said. But this is gonna be an interesting one to see if Gomez is able to catch Alexander and Godzilla. With Nate Newcomer actually late into the pits, only 30 minutes left and he's only now into the pits. That's gonna be an interesting one if he can make that one up. Because that's a big gap he will have there. On board with Victor Cecilio. Whilst we got a really solid race this week also. And back on board with Godzilla. It's being chased by Mr. Alexander still. They're real close on each other. Onto the straight. Gomez in the background, and I believe some back markers behind there. Jack getting really close, putting it next to him, taking a look on the outside. That won't stick because Banks has the inside of that corner.
Yeah. And Nate Newcomer's already coming into the pits now as well, so he's coming in very late. Indeed.
That's an hour and 15 minutes into the race he's pitted.
Yeah, that is a good old shift there for Nate in his McLaren, car number 97.
Enjoy the water there, Rob.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Ever the professional. As we currently see Jack Alexander, and he is right on the gearbox of Kai Banks's car now. Alexander going to try the dummy there. Oh, not quite able to. Banks defending very robustly at the end of the Wellington Straight. And managing to hold on to the position. Then we see Mikko Sky. Now we're looking at Dan Barnett. And I'm not 100% sure why we're looking at Barnett, because he is 10 and a bit seconds behind Chafer and 1.5 seconds clear of RWB Tyrion. So I'm not 100% sure why we were looking at him there. Now we're looking back at this battle between Jack Alexander and Kai Banks for 4th place. And actually, this is great news for Hugo Gomez, because this is giving him a chance to have a look and maybe get involved in this as well. And now we're back looking at Dan Barnett and a couple of cars which are not on the same lap as him. Now looking at Debug in a very battered looking machine, battling away with Mikko Sky here. Sky getting past on the inside into club corner, so that means Mikko is now up into 19th place. Meanwhile, now looking at Peter Varga as he battles away with Mad Owl, and you can see Dirk Gretschel in the background there as well. Now back in this train for fourth place between Banks, Alexander, and Gomez. Banks maybe running a little bit wide there. Alexander getting up the inside onto the Wellington Straight. So Jack Alexander is now up into fourth place. God, come back from getting a drink of water and it all kicks off.
At the moment you left, for some reason they thought, okay, let's all have a battle at the same time. So the autocam was like, okay, now to this battle, now to that battle, now to this battle, and
yeah,
it was switching around.
Oh, I know the feeling. And also, what of it being a fairly long lap at Silverstone here as well. It's one of the longer circuits on the Grand Prix calendar, and in addition to that, it's also one of the longer lap times on ACC, purely because of the length of the circuit. Currently looking at Zvonimir Burek in the number 300 in 21st place. Now back to Radek in the lead of the race.
Just to show the difference, these guys are driving around 2 minutes a lap, but the fastest lap at Silverstone in F1 car is 1:27.
Yeah.
It's 33 seconds.
And that's aerodynamics for you. The aerodynamics on a contemporary Grand Prix car meant that they were actually flat through Copse, flat through Abbey, and well, I mean, even an LMP2 car's flat through Abbey these days. So
they have been improving.
They have some absolutely incredible amounts of grip on these cars, and it really does show here, as Radek Schuller is now on the back of Peter Varga. It's not for position, but to put Varga another lap down. Well, I say another lap down, a lap down, excuse me. So, doesn't appear to be holding Schuller up too much. Varga currently the fastest of the AM class drivers on track in 14th place. With Madsley being the quickest of the silver class drivers in third, and Schuller being he's the race leader, so he's the quickest of anyone. So yeah, another cracking job indeed by Radek, who's doing pretty well so far tonight, leading very comfortably indeed. Kai Banks battling away Hugo Gomez. Here Gomez is going to have the inside line on heading into Club Corner now. Hard on the brakes for the corner. Gomez on the inside for the first part, but Banks has the inside for the second part of the corner. Gomez and himself racing each other very hard indeed. Gomez going quite wide there at the exit of Club. Banks going to have the inside for the first part, and now we cut to Radek Schuller and lapping Peter Varga, which is quite annoying because there's a fantastic battle going on for 5th place at the moment, and we're going to find out any second now who has claimed it. It is indeed Hugo Gomez, who is in 5th place at the moment, having overtaken Kai Banks somewhere. Not 100% sure where, but an overtake was definitely made somewhere. And now we are looking at RWB Tyrion in his car. Has Jack Alexander with 21 minutes of the race to go here. So a quick rundown for you. It's Radek Schuller leading from MO plates, then Justin Madsley, Jack Alexander, Hugo Gomez, Kai Banks, Varley, Schaefer, Barnett, Binnersley. That's the top 10. Tyrion, newcomer, Audi, Varga, Al, Gretschel, Duckworth, Flack, Sky, and Debug rounding out the top 20. And then you got Burek, Hottie, and Vilk rounding out the top 23. With just over 20 minutes of the race to go here at Silverstone. Nice and dry so far, which is something of a rarity here in the UK. A lovely dry day for a bit of motor racing.
Especially interesting, it's wind still. There's no wind at all.
Yeah.
Which I can tell you in real life, there is probably a lot of wind. At least here in the Netherlands, it's storming out here.
Yes, having been to Silverstone for the... Well, we once had a World Endurance practice session abandoned back in 2016 at Silverstone because it started snowing.
I haven't heard that much. The race stopped due to snow.
Yes, and whilst the LMP1 hybrids of the time had four-wheel drive, it's not the sort of four-wheel drive you have on a Land Rover, for example, that works in the snow. So once everyone started spinning off the circuit, it was decided to red flag and abandon the session. Which of course meant that the European Le Mans Series session was held in, and race itself was actually held in some fantastically cold weather conditions. And I'll have to see if I can actually dig that up on, if it's on Alcmel timing somewhere.
What I do like about Silverstone though, is you still have quite a lot of options. Talking about lines into corners. It's some fast corners, of course, you don't have that much of a choice for your line, but there are still options, which there aren't at every track. So it also makes racing interesting because you can put it on the outside or on the inside a little bit easier, without being worried you spin straight away.
Yes, I have actually found the weather report for the qualifying for the 2016 ELMS 4 Hours of Silverstone. Air temperature was 3.5 degrees, rising to about 4.7, and the track temperature was 5.5 degrees, rising to about 6.1 degrees. Yes,
Yeah.
that's how cold it was.
With those temperatures, I will take a cup of warm chocolate milk, sit in my room and watch some Netflix or something.
Yes, whereas some would be standing in the trackside watching the motor racing, and if it wasn't for the fact I think I actually had I was actually meeting up with some friends that night, I also would have been at Silverstone that day probably. In the very, very cold that day. So yes, that was quite something, I must say. The race itself that year being won by Simon Dolan, Harry Tinknell and Guido van der Garde in the G-Drive Racing Gibson Nissan. It's being run, if I remember correctly, by Jota. So that was good performance indeed. 118 laps in the Burke. And yes, meanwhile, as we see RWB Tyrion and Nate Newcomer battling away here, coming through Copse Corner now. Nate's going around the outside and getting a better exit there and getting past Tyrion as the car's off in the background there. And big old collision there as car number 21, I think Rick Binnersley has just been given a drive-through penalty, I think, for cutting the circuit. Unfortunately, it's a little bit unfair, given that he was actually, I think, trying to take avoiding action of another driver. It's kind of a 21 was showing as being under yellow, which means that that may have been Damien Vilk, as Peter Varga has a collision with another driver, with RWB Audi, and comes off much worse than that. God, it's all kicking off in Maggots Beckett's chapel these days. This means that it's now a three-way battle between Maddow, RWB Audi, and Dirk Gretschel down the hanger straight into Stowe corner. It's going to be Maddow coming out on top ahead of RWB Audi. There's a little bit of contact there between them. Is that going to be enough for Dirk Gretschel? Now we're looking at Rick Binnersley in his slightly unfortunate penalty. So Phil Varley there in 7th place. There's Kai Banks in 6th place at the moment. Hugo Gomez just in front of him. He's got a back marker who he's trying to get past at the moment. Currently now looking from a third-person cam on Kai Banks' car. Hard on the brakes, gets it done, job done. As Rick Binnersley comes in for his drive-through penalty. What you don't want when you get a drive-through penalty is to end up getting a stop-and-go penalty afterwards for speeding in the pit lane. That would be not ideal, I think it's fair to say. And Rick comes out of the pits, and he thankfully has managed to avoid a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which is good news. Currently looking at Mad Al with Dirk Gretschel right behind him, having got past RWB Audi. And coming through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel once again, as we have less than a quarter of an hour. We've got 13.5 minutes or so remaining. So, yes, it really did all kick off in quite a big way in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, I've just fixed something. Some guy thought it was funny to ping everyone in a Discord server or moderator. So, there was a short conversation of me clicking right on his name and clicking the ban button.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's guys, come on, last 15 minutes. Let's keep it clean.
Oh, very close there between Dan Barnett and Nate Newcomer, coming out of Luffield as well. Just looking back at Dirk Gretschel's car now, heading towards the back of Mad Al in the battle for 13th place here this evening. Currently 12 minutes or so to go. Now there's Martin Schaefer, who is kind of in no man's land to a degree. He's 18 seconds behind Varley, and Barnett is 12.6 seconds behind him. So the Schaefer in the car entered under the I think it was the like Siemens Hybrid Investment Trust entry. Yes, so that's quite a funny team name. Currently looking at Justin Madsley in 3rd place, 4 seconds or so behind Emo Plates. Just about C Plate up ahead, as albeit more as a small speck in the distance, but coming through the veil now. Now we're looking back at Oliver Brett Smith with Xavier Eugenie right with him. Battle for 24th position. Eugenie's going to have to go the long way round at Club in the first part of the corner. Smith has the inside line for there, but Eugenie has the inside line, backs out of it though. So Smith holding on to 24th position there. Now, looking at this battle still raging on between Mad Al and Dirk Gretschel. Gretschel right on the back of Mad Al's car. And this is actually bringing RWB Audi back into the equation as well. And depending on how long this battle goes on for, that might be a benefit to Peter Varga. You can just about see the blue and yellow car in the back of shot there on the, as they went down the Wellington Straight. So Mad Al currently in 13th, but with some very quick drivers also right behind him in Dirk Gretschel and RWB Audi. Coming through Cops once more. Just under 10 minutes to go here. 10 minutes being roughly 5 laps or so at Silverstone. So it should be fairly close to the end now. Chance to see if the strategy gamble has paid off for anyone. There's Dan Barnett in 9th place, still with Nate Newcomer almost glued to the back of his car, and RWB Tyrion closing in, I think, as well for good measure. Currently in 9th place is Dan Barnett. Nate right behind him. You can see Harry Hottie just in front of these two. Hottie taking a very tight line through the first part of the complex there. That means that Barnett and Newcomer almost side by side. Bit of flame out the back of Barnett's car there. They come through Luffield now. Hottie getting out of the way of these two, and RWB Tyrion as well. Now we're looking at RWB Audi as he closes up to the back of this battle here between Mad Al and Dirk Gretschel. Nate Newcomer around the outside there at Club. Is he going to have the inside line for the first part of Maggots? Not quite. He briefly had 9th for a fraction of a second. Barnett still in front and making a little bit of a mistake there, I think, coming out of Chapel. Dirk Gretschel still not even half a second behind Mad Al. In fact, the gap now down to 0.3 of a second. They come through Cops once more. Some very good battles brewing here at Silverstone in the Clash of the Warriors series. There's RWB Audi now with Peter Varga right on the back of his car. Come down the hangar straight once more. In other news, Chafer has got past Barnett for 9th place. As RWB Audi taking a very tight line there at Club. Now we're looking at RWB Tyrion, who's also right on the back of Dan Barnett's car for good measure. And is that Nate Newcomer? In fact, that is Nate Newcomer there in 11th place, so they've both managed to get past Nate. Tyrion having a look up the inside of Barnett. We're switching to the helicam now. Barnett's going to have the inside line for Luffield. Not quite close enough, I don't think, as Mikko Sky comes into the pits for a top up of fuel. Unfortunately for him, strategy gamble didn't quite pay off there, as Dirk Gretschel still on the back of Mad Al's car. There's Dan Barnett there in 9th place. Tyrion having gone wide, whether he was forced off or whether it was of his own volition, not 100% sure, but either way, dropped down a few places. Meanwhile, looking at Hugo Gomez, who's got another driver right up his gearbox. Not for position, I should add. But yes, it really has all kicked off with just under 6 minutes to go here at Silverstone. Coming down the Wellington Straight is Hugo Gomez. Gomez in 5th place at the moment. Very strong performance indeed from the Spaniard. With Kai Banks in 16th. A little way behind, 3 and a bit seconds. Whether that's a gap that's manageable in the last 5 minutes of the race, I'm not 100% sure, unfortunately. So Schuller still leads from plates, and Madsey and Alexander just ahead. Battle still raging on here between Matt Allen and Dirk Gretschel. They've actually managed to put a bit of space between themselves and the battle between RWB Audi and Peter Varga. The car you see there in the background is the actually MO Plates in 2nd place overall, who's just got past Gretschel and now is going to try and find a way past Mad Out. I think newcomer there in 9th place, just ahead of Dan Barnett, and RWB Tyrion closing up to this group as well. There's MO Plates still just ahead of Dirk. There's Dan Barnett now. Coming onto the Hangar Straight once more. And heading down towards Stowe Corner once again. Now as Radek Schuller just passing some lapped traffic once more. Radek having not put a wheel wrong all race. Started on pole, got the fastest lap, leading the race still. Another Radek Schuller-esque drive from himself. As Justin Madsey in 3rd place goes past another driver, as the battle between Dan Barnett and RWB Tyrion still rages on. Thought it might be a little bit of contact there for a minute or two, but no, all good so far.
This is very interesting, especially with only 3 minutes left. It's, I think, a fight to the line.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be a very, very close one indeed. Here, there's only 2.5 minutes left now, as Mo has got past Mad Out, and Mad Out I think may have been held up slightly because that's brought Dirk Gretschel right into it. Is Gretschel going to have a look up the inside? Indeed he is. At the just before Luffield, Mad Out has the inside line for Luffield, but Gretschel manages to hold on to the position. So Dirk Gretschel, brilliant overtake from him to go up into 13th place. That one has been coming for quite some time. In other news, I think there may have been an instance somewhere involving Varga and Audi, because Varga is 1.5 seconds off the back of Mad Owl's car, and RWB Audi is now 12.5 seconds behind Varga. So I'm not 100% sure what has happened there, but I'm guessing there has been some sort of incident on track. You know what? Justin Madsley there is going to be the next driver to try and find his way through this little battle here. There's a yellow flag at Club Corner briefly. And there's a car going slowly there to let this battle through. I'll say battle, this whole gaggle of cars through as they head into Abbey one more time. It will be another lap here at Silverstone as Radek's at the end of the Wellington Straight, so he'll be able to cross the line in time to start a final lap of the race. There's MO plates coming onto the Wellington Straight now. Radek is about to cross the start finish line now, so with 16 seconds to spare, Radek will be sending everyone on to lap 52. Although Radek actually had enough time in hand that he could theoretically have actually stopped on the pit straight and then floored it to cross the line once the clock hit 0 and still win the race. So there will be another lap here at Silverstone this evening. We're looking at Jack Alexander at the moment. Emo crosses the start, has just crossed the line, I think, now. Oh no, sorry, excuse me, that's because Radek has gone through split time at Sector 1. Harry Hottie has come into the pits, unfortunately. At the end there, Jack Alexander coming through Maggots, Beckett's Chapel complex right now. Heading onto the Hangar Straight one last time as Schuller comes up towards Abbey. So heading into Stowe Corner for the last time is Jack Alexander. Good exit out of there, down the hill now in through the Vale and up towards Club Corner once again. Schuller is on the Wellington Straight at the moment. Been a good run from all considered. There's Oliver Brett Smith there in 24th place now, overtaking Harry Hottie. There's RWB Tyrion in 10th. Wait to see where Radek is, and Radek Schuller crosses the line to win the penultimate round of the Clash of the Warriors series here at Silverstone. MO Plate is likely to be coming home in 2nd place. Dan Barnett, Rick Binnersley have already crossed the start-finish line in 11th and 12th respectively. We'll keep an eye on this as they come home. There's Dirk Gretschel crossing the start-finish line, Plate 2nd, Madsley 3rd. In fact, we'll do a rundown once they all get home. There shouldn't be too many position changes, sorry.
Yeah, as expected, of course, Schuller in P1.
Yeah, another masterful drive indeed by Radek Schuller. Looking at Victor Cicillo now in 24th place. As other drivers are all crossing the finish line now. So behind Jack Alexander, it's Hugo Gomez, Kai Banks, Phil Varley, Martin Chafer, Nate Newcomer, and RWB Tyrion rounding out the top 10. Then it's Dan Barnett, Dirk Gretschel, Peter Varga, Mad Owl, RWB Aldine 15th, Duckworth 16th, Flack 17th, Debug 18th, Burek 19th, and Mikko Sky rounding out the top 20. Then Xavier Eugeni is in 21st place ahead of Oliver Brett Smith, Victor Cicillo, Partes, and Harry Hottie. And that, I believe, is as much far of the field as we can see at the moment, as drivers are all coming across the start-finish line to complete the penultimate round of the RWB Clash of the Warriors series. Another fantastic evening's racing tonight. And Dirk Gretschel still touring around on his slowing down lap. Currently showing as being P11, despite which he now is showing as on the timing screen. So yeah, another fantastic evening's racing tonight. And you're the regular commentator on this one, Draka. So how was it from your point of view?
It's been an interesting race. I believe in a good race. Some, I think, a little bit too much of touching. That's unfortunately, of course, but I think it's still a successful race. The guys still have managed to pull off an awesome event. I hope everyone has enjoyed that one. Of course, Door, I think, a little bit less, as he had to retire due to a bracket of his chair breaking off. That's one I haven't heard a lot. Happening with technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate for Door this evening. But another fantastic evening's racing on track here, as I think we're seeing seeing some highlights on screen at the moment of the race start. And everyone filing their way through Maggots, Beckett and Chapel. Yeah, it's been a fantastic evening's racing. I've thoroughly enjoyed jumping behind the microphone once again on I say once again on a Saturday night this time, and coming up on RWB International. I get this up on my phone. We've got a big couple of weeks coming up, actually. We've got the TTRS Coalition Cup on Thursday night from Indianapolis. That's going to be another fun one to watch. And then on the 19th, we've got the Big Grid endurance race, 9 hours of Spa, which is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And on the 22nd, we've got the return of the Constructors' Championship for good measure. So lots to look forward to here on RWB International. And of course, we've even got the final round of the Clash of the Warriors series next week at Laguna Seca for good measure in the GT4 McLaren, the little 570S. So that's going to be a very fun evening indeed. So plenty of awesome racing coming up here on RWB International. My thanks to Drake for joining me in the commentary box tonight, to Nate for producing the stream, and I have been Rob Lomas, and as always, it's bye for now.